Well, we welcome you to our Building a Nuclear-Free World talk story. My name is Jose Barzola from the Matsunaga Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. Our talk story today is on Nagasaki Hibakusha testimony with Ms. Reiko Hada and moderated by myself, Jose Barzola. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the tragic impact of nuclear bombs. The talk story is part of the Building a Nuclear-Free World exhibit currently available at the Hamilton Library Bridge Gallery at the University of Hawaii, Manoa till April 28th. That is hosted by the Matsunaga Institute and the National Nagasaki Memorial Hall for the atomic bomb victims. With the continuous threat of nuclear devastation around the world, learning about and working to build a nuclear-free world has never been more timely. Building a nuclear-free world continues Matsunaga's long engagement with public outreach on the nuclear threat, which began in '95 on the 50th anniversary of the bombing, and then once more in 2018 and 2020. In addition to viewing the exhibition, you're also invited to attend Senator Spark Matsunaga's portion of the exhibit on peace and the ever-urgent need to build a nuclear-free world. There will be many other activities around the exhibition, and I hope you'll be able to join us. To assist us today from Nagasaki, we will have someone who will be providing interpretation and translation, as well as our main speaker. Thank you for joining us to learn from Ms. Reiko Hada. Hada-san, who will share her testimony of surviving the Nagasaki atomic bomb at the age of 9 years old. Her family lived 2.6 kilometers from the hypocenter, and hence she was not injured since there were hills between the houses and the hypocenter. She remembers crowds climbing up the hill, desperately crying for help. Along with her mother, she helped as many people as she could. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Hada-san, for being here as well. And to get us started, I'm going to let you take it over by being able to share your testimony with us. ありがとうございます。はい。
はい、どうぞ。いいですか。はい。ただいまご紹介いただきました羽田玲子と申します。この度は、この地球上で唯一の被爆国、その中の被爆都市の一つである長崎からお話をさせていただきます。
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I am Reiko Hada. Today I'm speaking to you from Nagasaki, one of the atomic bombed cities in the only country attacked by the atomic bombs in war on the earth.
1941年12月8日に始まった太平洋戦争。日々戦火は厳しく、激しくなっていき、ついに1945年8月9日11時2分、長崎の上空で一発の核兵器である原子爆弾が炸裂をしました。一瞬にして約7万5千人に及ぶ尊い命が奪われました。
The Pacific War began on the 8th of December 1941, and the battles got intensified day by day to calamity. At 11:02 a.m. on the 9th of August 1945, an atomic bomb or nuclear weapon was detonated over Nagasaki and took the precious lives of some 75,000 people instantaneously.
1945年8月9日、この日のことは78年経った今でも決して忘れることはできません。この日一発の原子爆弾は長崎の町を一瞬にして廃墟と化し、多くの人々のかけがえのない命を奪い去りました。その場から跡形もなく消されてしまった人、真っ黒焦げになり、骨さえも残すことができなかった人々を思い返すだけでも胸の内が苦しくなります。
70 years have passed since then, but I can never forget what happened that day on the 9th of August 1945. In an instant, the single atomic bomb reduced the city of Nagasaki to ruins and deprived many people of their one and only lives. Some vanished completely, and for some, all that remained were their charred black skeletons. Even now, just the thought of it gives me great pain deep inside.
1945年8月9日、原子爆弾が投下されたとき、私は9歳。 当時国民学校3年生でした。自宅は今の増山町の爆心地から東に向かって 2.6km 先の片渕町3丁目、この中間に高さ366メートルの山がありました。近くには経済高等専門学校があり、当日は朝から空襲警報が発令され、外に出ることもができず、家族ともども家の中にある防空壕の中にいましたが、何事もなく大丈夫らしいということで、警報が解除になり、ほっとして母は朝の用意を、父は仕事場へと出かけていきました。
On the 9th of August 1945, I was 9 years old and a third-year elementary school pupil. My house was in a neighborhood called Katafuji, which is 2.6 kilometers east of Matsuyama, where the bomb was dropped. A 366-meter-high mountain stood between my house and the hypocenter. Also in my neighborhood was the High School of Economics. As an air raid warning was out on the morning of that day, we were not allowed to go outside. All my family hid in the shelter inside our house. After a while, the warning was lifted because nothing had happened and everything seemed all right. We were relieved. My mother began to do some morning chores while my father went to work.
私は近くにあるお寺に行き、本当に久しぶりにお友達と会い、やがて昼近くになったので別れて家に帰り、玄関まで来て家の中に入ろうとしたその時でした。
I went to the nearby temple, which was then used as a temporary classroom, and enjoyed spending time together with my friends, whom I hadn't seen for some time. Before noon, I headed for home and was just about to enter my house.
いきなりです。金色、黄色、柿色を混ぜ合わせたようなギラギラした光が目の前を走り、次に自分の周りが真っ白になってたった一人取り残されたような感じを受けると同時に、ドーンという音を聞いたのもつかの間、その後は全く分からなくなってしまっていました。
Then all of a sudden, I was blinded by intense glaring lights of gold, yellow, and orange all mixed. And in the next moment, I was left all alone in a world of white. At least I felt that way. Simultaneously came an enormous boom. I went unconscious before I knew.
そこからどれくらい時間が経ったかは分かりませんが、体の上が重くて身動きができません。しかし、常日頃から急に身に危険を感じたら必ず防空壕に逃げなさいと教えられていましたので、そのことの一念で最後の力を振り絞るようにして重いものの下から抜け出します。まず母を探しました。母は台所の奥の方でうずくまっていました。逃げようと一生懸命声をかけ、私の町内の裏手にある竹山のふもとを持った町内の防空壕に逃げました。
I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I came back to myself, I couldn't move because something heavy was on me. I remembered, however, what I was always taught at school. Go to an air raid shelter to hide if we're in danger. I mustered all my remaining strength to push away the heavy thing to get out. Then I started looking for my mother. She was crouching in a far corner of the kitchen. I shouted at her, "We're getting away from here." We managed to evacuate in the neighborhood air raid shelter, which had been tunneled in the hill behind our house.
近所の方々も次から次に逃げてこられます。それから出る言葉は、家の屋根の上に大きな爆弾が落ちた。私のところはすぐお隣に大きな爆弾が落ちたとそれぞれの方が言っています。恐怖で今で言うパニック状態です。 私も何が何だかわからないまま防空壕の中にいましたが、外も次第に暗くなり、周りが静かになったので、防空壕から出てみました。
Our neighbors came too, one after another, saying, a huge bomb landed right on our roof, or there was a tremendous explosion right beside our house. There was a sheer panic caused by horror, and there I was in the shelter, feeling totally confused. Then it was getting dark, and everything was less chaotic, so I went outside.
防空壕の向かい側には高さ336メートルの山があります。その山の上空から上空が真っ赤になっていました。左側を見ると県庁があります。そこからものすごい勢いで炎が上がり、火の手がこちらに向かって近づいてきます。その炎がいつ自分の家まで来て燃やされてしまうのではないかという怖い思いをしたことを覚えています。
I saw the sky above the mountain ahead, burning red. I also saw enormous flames raging up from the prefectural government office to my left. They were spreading towards us. I still remember the fear that I felt at that time, thinking the fire might devour our house.
そして10日の朝を迎えました。すると浦上の方から大きな爆弾を落とされ、大きな建物もほとんど消失し、たくさんの人の遺体でいっぱいでもうダメだという言葉でした。そこでご近所の警防団の方が様子を見てこようと言って出かけられましたが、間もなく帰ってこられ、長崎駅の近くまで行ったけれど、浦上の方まで見通せるほど何にもないような状態になっていたということでした。
The next day, the 10th of August broke. We found out what had actually happened the day before. A powerful bomb exploded over the Urakami district and destroyed the area, burning down even large buildings there. We were told that there were a large number of dead human bodies lying everywhere, and that the devastation was so great that there was no hope left. Some members of our neighborhood defense unit then took off for inspection, but returned soon by saying that they had gone as far as Nagasaki train station, only to see the area beyond the station towards Urakami completely flattened. There was almost nothing left to be seen in between.
その時です。お隣のうちのお姉さんが、母が帰ってこないのです。続いて上の段の家のお母さんが、うちの息子も帰ってきていませんとの声が上がりました。お隣のお母さんは9日の朝、警戒警報が解除になったので、浦上の親戚のところに行くと言って出かけられたそうです。上の家のお兄さんは当時、長崎医科大学の2年生で、やはり学校に行っていられました。そこで近所の方でもあるし、探しに行こうと、先ほどのお父さん方が動き出された時です。山の道の向こうの方から真っ黒いものが少しずつ近づいてきます。それはお隣のお母さんでした。
To hear that, the girl next door said her mother hadn't come home yet. The woman who lived uphill from us also said that her son hadn't been back either. The girl's mother had gone to visit her relatives in Urakami that morning because the air raid warning was cancelled. The woman's son, a second-year student at Nagasaki Medical School, had been at school in Urakami that morning. We all worried our missing neighbors. It was when some men from the defense unit were just about to take off for search that we saw a black figure slowly approaching us. It was the girl's mother.
近所のお母さんたちは走り寄ることも声を上げることもできません。髪の毛は焦げて茶色でジリジリになっています。着物はほとんど剥ぎ取られ、足は裸足、表面に出ている皮膚は大きな水泡、水ぶくれですね。目も鼻も口もわからない状態です。医師もいない。 薬もない、どうしてあげることもできない状態でした。でも、何かしなくてはいけないとご近所のお母さん方が、それぞれの家に駆け込み、タオルやシーツを持ってこられました。そのシーツでそっとくるんで、家に連れて帰って行かれました。次に来られたのが大学生のお兄さんです。顔面蒼白で上半身は裸。ズボンはボロボロなんですね。足も何も履いていません。その上、背中一面にガラスの破片がいっぱい刺さっていました。ご近所のお母さん方は、各自家から箸を、ご飯食べる時のお箸ですね、持ってこられました。ピンセットの代わりです。お兄さんをそっと座らせて、ガラスの破片を抜き始めました。もちろん表面のものだけですが、抜けるだけ抜いて、あとはタオルで押さえて、家に連れて帰られましたが、しかし間もなくお二人とも亡くなられました。
Petrified by this sight, none of the women at the shelter could run for her or called out to her. She was barefoot, with her hair burnt brown and frizzled, and her clothing torn apart. The exposed part of her skin was swollen with large blisters, which made it impossible to make out her eyes, nose, or mouth. There was no doctor around or no medicine available. No one knew what to do with her. Finally, maybe out of desperate urge, some women fetched towels and sheets from their homes, gently wrapped her in them, and carried her home. The next person who returned was the college student. He was all pale and barefoot and naked from his waist up. His trousers were all torn apart. His entire back was wounded by numerous shards of glass. The women at the shelter fetched chopsticks, with which, as pinchers, they began to get rid of the shards. They could only remove the one stabbed shallowly in the skin, but they tried as many as possible. Finally, he was taken home with his wounds covered with towels. Shortly after, I learned that both had died.
それから警防団のおじさんから声がかかりました。コンピラさんと目の前の高さ366メートルの山ですね。山を越えて浦上の方から傷ついた方々が私たちの町の方へ降りてこられているので、手を貸してほしいと母たちが集められました。傷ついた方々を学校の講堂に連れて行き、そこで連れて行ってほしいということですね。私も母について行っています。しかし、そこで目にしたものは、目が飛び出しています。耳がちぎれ下がってます。お腹が裂けてます。髪の毛は焦げ、男の方も女の方も着ているものは下着らしいもののみで、ほとんどの方は裸足で、皮膚も垂れ下がっています。
The man from the neighborhood defense unit asked the women, including my mother, to help them with the care for those wounded, who were walking all the way from Urakami over Mount Kompira, which was the 366 meters high, and all the way to our area. I went with my mother when she was asked to take some of those to the auditorium of the nearby school, only to be shocked. There were people whose eyes were popped out of their sockets, whose ears were cut hanging down from their faces, and whose stomachs were split open. Both women and men alike, their hair was scorched, and no clothing except for the underwear was worn. Most of them were barefoot. Some had their skin stripped and drooping.
とにかく母たちは肩を貸し、支えるようにして講堂の中に連れて行きました。床にシーツを敷き、身を横たえるようにしてあげるのですが、ほとんどの方は虫の息でした。ただ、細い声で言われる言葉は、水をください、水が欲しいということです。水を入れるものを探し、 お茶碗らしいものを見つけて、近くに流れている川から水を汲んできて飲ませてあげましたが、その後、次から次へとなくなっていかれます。真夏ではあるし、傷口にはうじが湧きます。匂いがします。でも、この時は気持ちが悪いとか嫌だとかいう、臭いとか、ごめんなさい。いう感情は全くありませんでした。神経が麻痺してしまっていたのでしょうね。
Anyway, my mother and other neighborhood women held them up on their shoulders and took them to the auditorium. There, they spread sheets on the floor to lay these people down, but most of them were already on the verge of death. They said in a faint voice, "Water, please," or "I want some water." I looked around for something to collect water in and found a cup-like container. I went down to the river nearby for water and brought back some in the container to give sips to the wounded. However, they died one after another. It was the midsummer, so the maggots started breeding in the wounds, making an awful smell. I don't remember, however, feeling sick of or upset about it. In fact, I didn't feel any emotion. Maybe my senses had been shut down.
母に手を引っ張られながら傷ついた方々の中をあちこち走り回っているのです。そして亡くなられた方々を長く放置することができないということで、早く亡くなられた方から順に学校にあるプールの隅に家の廃材を積み上げて焼いていきました。今考えるとどこのどなたかもわかりません。
I followed my mother here and there among the wounded people. Those who died had to be carried away from the auditorium before long, in the order as they died. They were rested on the scrap woods piled up in the school swimming pool and cremated. Thinking back now, I realize that we never knew who they were or where they were from.
コンピラ山を越え、私たちの町まで降りてこられ、学校の講堂に入られるまでのあの場で、あの傷で、あの状態で、そこまで命を支えてきたものは何だったのか。きっと、生きていたい、死にたくない、家族のもとへ帰りたいということではなかったのでしょうか。
They had climbed over Mount Compira and reached the auditorium in my area when they were almost fatally injured. What did they have to make it possible? I would think that they had a strong desire to live on, not to die, or to go back home to their families.
人は生まれたら必ずその命を閉じる時があります。しかし、殺されるために生まれてくるのではありません。人は人として生まれてきてよかった、生きていてよかったと思える、それが本当の姿だと思います。
We as humans are given life, which must come to an end eventually. But none of us is born to be killed. We're supposed to live our life so that we can feel it worth beginning and leading on.
今、広島、長崎で被爆した人たちは、国内では主として修学旅行でそれぞれの土地を訪れる小中高生に向かって、また外国に出向き、核兵器の脅威を語り継いでいます。広島と長崎で起こったことを二度とこの地球上で繰り返されることのないように、そしてこれからの若い人たち、生まれてくる幼い子どもたちに同じ思いをさせてはならないという一年で語り継いでいます。
Hibakusha, or atomic bomb survivors in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like myself, give talks about the horror of nuclear weapons to young people of elementary, middle, and high school ages when they visit the two cities, mainly on school excursions. We also go overseas to share our stories and messages with the people living outside Japan. We believe that it is our responsibility to pass on our memories of memory to future generations, so that what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki may never be repeated on Earth, and so that young ones now and tomorrow may never experience what we experienced.
今、この地球上には核兵器と言われるものが12,720個近くあるとされています。この核兵器を一日も早くゼロにすること、その日のためには多くの人々と手を取り合い、力を合わせていくことだと思っております。
At present, it is said that there are about 12,720 nuclear weapons existing on the Earth. We must make this number zero as soon as possible. And to do so, we must work together hand in hand with as many people as possible for the same cause.
もう少し付け足したいことがあるけど、いいでしょうか。で、子どもたちには私はいつもこう言います。このようなね、核兵器を使わないようにするためにはどうしたらいいか。まず戦争を絶対にしないこと。じゃあ戦争をしないためにはどうしたらいいか。日本で言えば今あるこの平和、78年間続いている平和を絶対に崩してはいけない。そうするためには一人一人がね、きちんと平和について考え、語り合い、そしてそれを表現したり、行動したりして、力を、手と手をつないでいくことが一番大切だと思います。そして3つ。はい、いいですか。
There is the question I always ask to young children when I see them. How can we eliminate or get rid of nuclear weapons from the surface of the Earth? Well, the most typical answer would be that we don't go into war. Well, Japan is fortunate to be able to enjoy the peaceful environment for the last 78 years. And in order to maintain peace, what do we have to do? Is the next question. And one of the things we can do, as at the beginning, is that each one of us should first think of what peace is. And you share your idea about peace with other people. And you find a way to express it. And you find a way to translate it into actions.
そして最後に、本当に最後にみんなに約束してほしいことは、この3つの約束です。一つは、今のあなたたちの命はこの地球上にはたった一つしかない、かけがえのない大切な命なんです。その命を絶対に粗末にしないでください。大切にしてほしいと思います。
And I always ask the children to make 3 pledges. One of them is that they will take good care of their lives because they have one and only lives to live. And you should take very good care of your own life.
2つ目は、差別を絶対にしないでほしいということです。人間この世におぎゃっと生まれた赤ちゃんからおじいちゃんおばあちゃんまで命はごめんなさい。その命の重さ、尊さはみんな一緒なんですね。だからそれももちろん障害があってもとにかく差別をしてはいけない。そうしてやっぱり生きていかなきゃいけないということ。3つ目は、
The second pledge is that you never exercise discrimination. You never discriminate people. Because as I said, each one of us has a precious life to live on. Some people may have some disabilities of some sort, but we should not discriminate them for that, because each one of us is given one precious life.
そして最後の3つ目は、何か問題が起こったら必ず話し合いで解決をしてください。時間がかかることもあると思います。時間がかかってもいいんです。時間かけてるうちに相手の気持ちも理解できるようになるし、譲り合うこともできるようになると思います。そして最後まで話し合いで解決をしてほしいと思います。この3つを大切にしてください。以上、私のお話を終わります。
And the third pledge is that whenever you encounter a problem or conflict, you should talk with each other. You should communicate with each other. It may take more time to come to a conclusion or the solution, but you should take that time. And while you're communicating with each other, you will find a way to compromise, or you will find a way to find a solution which both parties and all parties are satisfied with. And that is certainly a very good way to understand each other. So these are the 3 pledges I always urge small children or young children to keep in their minds. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. That was just really so special to be able to be here with you and to hear your story. I do want to let the audience know, please add any questions you have into the chat, and we'll be getting to those shortly. I did have some questions myself, as well as some that have been sent to me earlier. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how did this experience, change your life after that? So I been in these testimonials a couple of times, and one thing I really love to learn about is between when you experience the atomic bombing to now that your testimonies to us, what was the rest of your life? What kind of career, what kind of education did you pursue? Everything that you are comfortable sharing. Just love to learn a little further about that. You're muted right now. Now there. Thanks.
よろしいでしょうか。私がこの語り部を始めるきっかけになったのは、実は話の中に出てきた大学医学部のお兄さんですね。このお兄さんはですね、もうとにかく、そうですね、戦争中はもうほとんどどんなに仲が良くても、お隣に仲のいいお友達がいても、おしゃべりすることも遊ぶこともできませんでした。ただ、
I would like to share how I decided to actually share my testimony with the people, and that has something to do with the medical student whom I mentioned in my talk. Well, everything happened during the war, so even the small children didn't have the freedom to talk or play with the next door friends.
で、このお兄さんは、なんでしょうね、もうとってもそういう状態の中にあって、もう本当お友達、私たち小さい子は、もう戦争の終わる頃はね、もう母親に手を引かれて、 家と防空壕の間を行ったり来たりするような状態だったんですけれども、このお兄さんだけはそういう状態の中にあっても、学校に行ける日に私の家の横を通るときは、行ってきます、言われるんです。行ってらっしゃい。ただいま、おかえり。それだけなんですけれども、そのお兄さんはいつもね、優しい笑顔でした。大好きでした。
So my life also probably the same with the other small or young children. Our life is only something so between my house and the shelter. And again, that we didn't have even the freedom to talk with each other or play with each other so often. But this medical student, a young man, was a bit different. And he was one of my neighbors. So when he went to school every morning, he would say, hello. And when he comes home, he said, hello, I'm home again, and so forth. So that was really, really something very special before a small child like me back in those days. And he said that with a beautiful smile, and that made it even more special.
私はね、そのお兄さんの顔を見るたびに、何かお兄さんの役に立つようなお仕事を私もそばでしたいな、そういう思いがあったんですね。でも、原爆が投下されて、その翌日、私たちの目の前にそのお兄さんが姿を現しました。背中に髪の毛はチリチリ、そして上半身裸、ズボンはボロボロです。足は裸足です。そんな状態で帰ってこられ、もちろんもう私も誰かがわからないような状態。私もその原爆の時のショックで、もう駆け寄ることも、声をかけることさえもできませんでした。そのお兄さんが私の横を通るときに、背中にガラスの破片がいっぱい刺さってました。ギラギラ光ってました。近所のお母さんたちがね、みんな駆け寄って、そしてご飯食べる時のお箸で一個一個抜いていったんですね。時々、大きな破片を抜くと、そこから真っ赤な血が流れます。その真っ赤な血の色と、お兄さん、ギラギラしたガラスの色が私の頭の中と心の中にしっかり刺さって残ってしまいました。で、その後ね、
でもちょっといいです。いいですよ。ですか？ちょっと。Well, again, this young college student, who greeted me every morning and every evening when he passed by my house, and I somehow had a little dream. Well, someday in the future, I would like to do something which can be helpful for him, or I want to do something to help him. But the 9th of August came and the atomic bomb was dropped, and there he was with his hair frizzled or with his feet all bare, and he was not wearing at all on his top, and his trousers were all torn apart. And I myself couldn't really tell who he was who it was at the moment, and I couldn't run for him to help, or I couldn't even call out his name. I was shocked. And again, as I said in my talk, his back was really, really wounded with these many shards of glass. And I still remember the color of the blood coming from his wounds, and also that the sort of the glaring glitter coming from the shards which are stabbed in his back.
それで私はもう必ずその被爆体験講話の時にこれを話します。ある時大学の先生がこんなことを言われました。そのお兄さんがそうしてね、もうそんなにもう生きられるはずじゃない命を引きずって山を越えて、 あなたの目の前に現れたのは、自分の体を見せて、そして二度とこのようなことが起こらないように、やっぱり伝えてほしいという思いがしっかりあったのではないか。だからあなたはその責任を果たしてください。大学の先生から言われました。ここまでは私もね、あまり深くは考えていなかったんですけれども、そこから、やっぱりそうだったんだ。だからもう私のすることは、このことを多くの人に語って、そして伝えていくことだと思い、その後は看護師の免許を取り、そして中学校の養護教諭になり、子どもたちに命の尊さと戦争、原爆の無誤さ、悲惨さを伝えていくようにしております。現在それもずっと続けております。
I usually share this part of my story when I give talks. And one day, a university professor came up to me after listening to my talk, and he said, that young man had drew his remaining strength to climb up the mountain to come down to his neighborhood, and showing his wounds, so that the people who saw that will keep in mind that they should never repeat such a thing. And this university professor said that it was my responsibility to actually pass on his stories to many people out there. And at first, I couldn't quite understand what he meant, but eventually, what he said made perfect sense to me. So that motivated me share my testimonies with people and share my stories and experience with many people. And then I became the registered nurse, and I worked as a school nurse at the local junior high school. And I had a lot of opportunities to talk about how precious life is and how miserable the war is with their students. And also through my testimony sessions, I share the same stories with many people, even now. And we should not start the war. We should not use nuclear weapons, because each one of us is given one and only precious life to live.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate how you have carried on the legacy and that relationship that you developed so many years ago till today, so that folks can see the impact of the beautiful impact of a smile, you know. And I Well, I am just checking to see if anybody else in the audience has any questions. You are able to unmute yourselves as well, if you'd like. I know the first time that I heard a testimony, I was processing. It's a lot to process. And I thank you for being here today to share with us your testimony and allowing us to learn further about the horrible tragic impacts of nuclear bombs. I appreciate your opening up about your experiences and what you've learned, and your kindness and your leadership as, to guide us as we move forward. And I think your story itself, it's not only, yes, there was tragedy, but I think there's beautiful resilience and hope that has come from it. And I thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. And I will, I do want to thank everyone else who happens to be here today. I will be on in case anyone maybe doesn't want, may feel a little shy to ask questions. Thank you for all that you do and you continue to do. Well, we are coming to a close, I guess. Nobody else has questions.
Well,
yes.
Jose-san, this is from Nagasaki, and
Yes.
we have just found out, and we just found the one question in the chat box.
Yes.
Can we take it?
Yeah.
It goes, when telling your stories about atomic bombing and the horror of it, do you have any difficulties? This is the question. And Hada-san is ready to answer.
Thank you. Yeah, please. They probably just directly messaged you and I had no idea.
はい、じゃあお願いします。お答えいただいていいですか？お願いします。
何を？
その被爆のお話をするときとかですね、そのがいかに恐ろしかったかっていうのを証言でお話しなさるわけですけれども、その時になんかこう難しさっていうのありますか？きつさであるとか。
そうですね。いいですか？
はい。
被爆体験や何かを語るときに、やっぱり私は実は本当は今ここにいない人間なんです。長崎に原爆が投下される時の最初の目標地点は今の浦上ではなかったんですね。県庁のあたりでした。もしそこにちゃんと落とされてたら今の私は消えてしまってました。だけど雲がかかっていたために落とせなくて、そして長崎の上空を旋回して最後に決めたのが今の浦上の被爆地ですね。投下地点です。だから私は長崎のね、本当のこの周辺で起こった状態はね、もう目の当たりにしてないんですね。だから本当にきちんと伝わっているのか、伝えるということは非常に難しいと思いました。でも先ほどお話ししたように、大学の先生から言われ、そういったとにかく山を越えて来られた方たちの姿を見て、そこを通してやっぱりきちんと語らなきゃいけないという示唆がありました。それで私もそれからあとずっとこちらの方に足を向けて、そして周囲の方のお話を聞きながら話をしています。でもね、だんだん聞いているうちに本当に今そこに私がいた時のようなね、思いがずっと蘇ってくるんですね。涙が出そうな時があります。でももう本当に涙なんか流してはいれない。やっぱりきちんとみんなを見ながら話さなきゃいけないという思いで、今日まで語ってまいりました。これからもずっと続けていきたいと思っております。
In fact, the first target of the bomber on the 9th of August was not really Urakami, but my neighborhood. But because there was too much clouds to actually focus the target, they changed the target from my neighborhood over to Urakami, so that I could have been completely vanished under that bombing. So I didn't really see that most devastated part of the city. But as I said in my talk, I saw many badly wounded people coming all the way from Urakami over Mount Kompira to my neighborhood. I think I had some responsibility before that, and I think I can play my part in passing on my memories to the future generations or the present generations. And the words of the university professor, which I also mentioned in my answer, is another motivation as well. And when I talk, I am overwhelmed with my emotions, and I almost shed my tears. But again, I feel very responsible, or I have very strong determination to share my stories as accurately as possible to as many people as possible. And I have been doing it, and I will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know one of the things I always talk about how important it is to understand the other side perspectives. You know, many times conflict happens because we don't take the time to, one, communicate with each other, and two, to try to understand the perspective that people are coming from. And so I really appreciate the perspective that you're providing to our audience today, to hopefully have a better insight into why it is that, you know, we should never have this happen again.